It is almost the end of the year, so it is crunch time to get a few more books in. So this is my 10 before the end, books that I want to read before 2025 is over. And I'm going to be talking new releases, books that have been on my shelf for way too long, and series that I'm going to be continuing. We've got a lot going on, but I am really excited to talk about these books. And let me know, as we're getting into this, what your 10 before the end is. Hi guys, it's Amy and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. I hope that you're doing well. Let me know how you're doing in the comments below. I am, of course, talking about my 10 before the end, and this is kind of a trend that's over on TikTok where I also post, but I thought it would be fun to bring it over here and kind of chat a little bit more in depth than I can on TikTok because it's just kind of rapid, fast pace over there, and this is kind of like we can sit and chat. And I had a comment from a viewer the other day saying that I like your videos. It feels like I'm chatting with a friend about books. And that is like the best compliment that I can get because it feels like how I want my videos to feel. So I'm just kind of chatting with you like what I'm going to be reading. And some of these are going to be new releases, like I said, so I don't have them with me, but they are continuings of series that I've already started or potentially just new authors that I want to get to, but I'll get into that in a minute. I am just really excited to talk books with you guys today. The hair has really been curly lately. You know, if you have curly hair, you know that it just has a mind of its own, but it is very much curling today. And I've got books around me. So I'm ready to lock in and get into it. So if you're like me, grab your water. I haven't been as good with drinking my water today, but grab your water or drink, grab a snack, and let's just hang out and chat some books. First up on the list is my next kind of bigger fantasy read, and that is Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is the third and final book of his Bloodsworn Saga trilogy, and I have really enjoyed this series, and I'm looking forward to get back into it, especially because a book that I just finished that is like the big fantasy book I was reading at the time was kind of a letdown. I am pulling it from the shelf right now, but I finished the Rook and Rose trilogy. This is the final book, Labyrinth's Heart, and this was such a letdown. I will probably do a video about the series and just my thoughts on it, but this was a letdown, so I am looking forward to a book that I feel like has better reviews. A lot of people were saying that this was going to be a letdown. I was hoping that maybe I would still like it, but I didn't. But I have a good feeling about Fury of the Gods. And if you're not familiar, this is like a kind of like mythology, Viking sort of story where we have multiple POVs and each one is on a quest and they're like these dead gods that are part of their mythology. But this has really been such a fantastic series, so I'm really looking forward to continuing it and having a better ending to a trilogy. Another book I'm looking forward to is one of the new releases that are coming out in these last couple of months, and that is Strength of the Few by James Islington. And if you know, this is the continuation of The Will of the Many, or the Hierarchy series. I had to look at my notes for a second. So this is the sequel to The Will of the Many, and I loved this book. It was so good. I actually, when I was finishing it, the ending is just crazy, but I was in the bathtub reading for some reason, and I finished it, and I out loud was like, oh my God. And my husband thought something was wrong. And he's like, you know, knocking on the door, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine. The book just really surprised me. So yes, it was definitely a surprise ending. So I have been waiting a whole year since I read this book to get the sequel, and I'm super excited about that. I know it comes out in November. The actual date escapes me. I'll put it here on the screen for you, but definitely looking forward to it. This is kind of like a Roman-inspired sci-fi fantasy series that kind of is like dark academia in a way. It's more of like, it feels like a war college or something like that, where they are learning and training, and this boy is basically kind of adopted into a family and asked to go to this academy and find out some political secrets. There may be some more nefarious things going on at this school. So it is just so interesting with the politics and the characters. I really love our main character in this story and definitely looking forward to seeing the rest of his story in Strength of the Few. Another continuing of a series, Brigands and Breadknives by Travis Baldree. This is the third book in his Legends and Lattes series, which I have right here. I absolutely love this cozy fantasy series. I feel like this really put cozy fantasy on the map as like a sort of sub-genre that has become very popular. I recommend this book all the time, and I know a lot of other people do as well. This is the first book. The second book is Bookshops and Bone Dust. And then, of course, the third book coming out in November is Brigands and Breadknives. And that is supposed to be following a side character from the second book, from my understanding. So I'm really excited to see where it's going to go. It's supposed to be a little bit different than the previous two books, but I just really love this series. I love Baldree's writing. It's just so cozy and whimsical, found family, all of those things that I love. So definitely looking forward to another cozy fantasy for the end of the year. Now, an author that is newer to me, I do have one of their books on my shelves, but I have not read it yet. But I am looking forward to this new release of theirs, and that is The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. And I'm not as familiar with what's going on in this one, so I'm going to just kind of read a synopsis. Sir Una Everlasting is a legendary lady knight whose deeds built a nation. Centuries later, historian Owen Mallory becomes obsessed with her legend and is sent back through time to ensure the legend plays out as history records it. Except, what if the story must be rewritten? Okay. Time twisting fantasy romance, mythic reflections on heroism and legacy. It's emotional and thought provoking. I love time travel, like anything time travel. I'm a big Doctor Who fan. I like it in my stories. So the idea of like Lady Knight, which I know has kind of like become popular in this second half of 2025, there's been a lot of releases that have been like Lady Knight characters. But that and like time travel and a legend, like this sounds absolutely fantastic. So definitely looking forward to that. I also have their book Starling House, like I said, on my shelf, which I feel like would maybe be good for like the spooky season. I've just heard a lot of really good things about this author, but this probably will be my first book of theirs, and then I'll get to Starling House hopefully soon. Next on my list is another series continuation, and it is a YA fantasy series, and that is Unbound by Michael R. Miller. This is the second book in his Songs of Chaos series. I actually have the first book right here, Ascendant, and this is like a classic feeling kind of YA fantasy with Dragon Rider and a chosen one situation, but it may sound and look like a lot like Aragon, but even if it has some similarities, it definitely is its own story. It has its own feel to it, and definitely by the end of the book, you're like, okay, this series is going in a totally different direction. So I am very much looking forward to seeing what happens in the second book. I was very graciously given this copy by the author and also a novella that is on my shelf. I don't know if I need to read the novella before the second book. I'm going to double check on that. So if you are reading this series, look into the novellas that are possibly attached to it. They may help with like the in between, but I'm definitely looking forward to continuing with our duo in this book. I loved them so much. Now, a series that is a little bit older and kind of unknown to me, but I've been seeing a lot of buzz about it, is The Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier. And I have like the mass paperback, but I did borrow this from my library. It's just a larger copy that's a little bit easier to read. I got this bookmark at the library the other day. I think someone colored it in, but it's like spooky house with the jack-o'-lantern, and I thought that was great for the spooky season. But this is a trilogy. This is the first book of a trilogy, the Seven Waters trilogy. I don't know if I said that, but this takes place in ancient Ireland. Sorcha, the only daughter of Lord Cullum of Seven Waters, must save her six brothers after her stepmother curses them to be transformed. She endures hardship, silent suffering, and love as she undertakes a dangerous mission. So this is like a fairy tale retelling. very much like historical fantasy feel. It's lush, atmospheric, and emotional. It says there's folk magic and, of course, a strong heroine. And I have been wanting to get into some older fantasy that you may not see like in your Barnes and Nobles and things like that. This just has sounded really good. I've been hearing some good reviews about it from people that I trust. So, looking forward to getting into a fantasy trilogy. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be too like dense of a read, too long of a read. So, I am definitely looking forward to starting this one. Okay, guys, my husband and I, we finally finished Ship of Destiny. I know, I can't believe it. We have been on that book for months and months. If you don't know, this is the third and final book of the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb, which is the second like smaller series in her larger Realm of the Elderling series. If you didn't follow that, 16 book series, Realm of the Elderlings. This is like a smaller section, the second trilogy within that 16 book series. Did we get that? Okay. So we we had been reading we had been reading Ship of Destiny for months, and it was just us like kind of prioritizing other things like watching shows. We have been like hardcore on anime this year, surprisingly. I have definitely been like in my anime era this year, but it was such a fantastic book, and it was definitely interesting being with different characters than the first trilogy, the Farseer trilogy within the Realm of the Elderlings. But now that we're done, we can move on to the next trilogy and get back to Fitz, and that is Fool's Errand. I see reactions of people with this book, and I feel like it's going to be pretty emotional getting back with these characters. I have just heard nothing but good things. I know everybody just like if you like Realm of the Elderlings, as you go, the further you go, the more you'll just love the series. So I'm really looking forward to getting back with some familiar characters, seeing where this is going to take us, and hopefully it won't be too much emotional damage, but I don't know if I can expect any reprieve from Robin Hobb. If you've read any of her books, you know what I'm talking about. The character work in this series is just unbelievable. It's so fantastic. Even with Live Ship Traders, when we started with Ship of Magic, I really didn't care for most of the characters. Some of them were okay, but I just was like, I don't really see how I'm going to be invested in this. But by the third book and just everything that they go through, you are so invested in these characters. And I think that's something that Robin Hobb does in such an impressive way, is make you care about characters in such a deep and emotional way. You're never going to forget about them. So getting back to Fitz and the Fool and everybody else, like I know is going to be super emotional. Now, since we are getting into the later part of the year and we are getting into the winter season, kind of in the latter half of November and of course December, I live in Florida, so winter isn't really like hardcore until like January. But in my mind, it is winter. But a book that I would like to read, which is another new release, is Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. This is supposed to be kind of like holiday themed. And it says Harriet York inherits an antique shop and loves Christmas. Nolan Callahan, the ghost of Christmas past, pays her a visit, and together they're drawn into a magical mission of revisiting past lives and healing. It's romantic, it's whimsical, and emotional. So this is supposed to be like a cozy, magical romance. And I have really enjoyed B.K. Borison's books that I have read. I haven't read all of them, but this just sounds like really fun. I like a few like holiday kind of romances or just seasonal books around like the holidays. So this definitely sounds promising and definitely like another take on A Christmas Carol. So I always like kind of a retelling and seeing how people are inventive with a story that's so beloved. So definitely looking forward to that, and I will probably fit in some other holiday romances as well. Another romance that I want to read, but this is like historical fantasy romance, and that is The Winter King by C.L. Wilson. This is a little bit of an older book, But this is about after years of war, Winter a Trillion demands vengeance on Summerlee's king by taking one of his daughters as his bride. Camzen Coruscate, Princess of Summerlee and a storm summoner, finds that what's meant to be punishment becomes something far more. So it says there is a dark power, the Ice Heart, that's looming. So it definitely sounds interesting, like kind of a forced sort of marriage situation, but we'll see how that goes. But of course, fantasy romance, but it says with epic stakes. There's ice magic, which is perfect for the winter months. There's vengeance, forbidden love. It's supposed to be dramatic and sensual with dark glamour. I don't even know what that means, but it definitely gives like kind of 80s, 90s romance vibes. But I've heard that this is really good from people that have read it. It's supposed to be kind of like essential fantasy romance reading. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun read for the winter months. And last on my list is a book that I've had for a while, but I just haven't gotten to because it is a very seasonal kind of book. And that is Hogfather by Terry Pratchett. How crazy is this cover? It's very like twisted peppermint sort of feel. But this is kind of like a sort of Santa Claus based sort of story, but in Terry Pratchett style. This is actually going to be my first full Terry Pratchett book. I have heard many good things about it. A friend of ours, Trey Price, with the Bearded Book Club, he raves about Terry Pratchett. And in this story, it says on the night of Hog's watch in the Discworld, the Hogfather, their version of Santa, disappears. The auditors of reality are behind it. Death must step in. His granddaughter Susan Stowe, he lit, begins investigating. If belief fails, the world might end. So kind of a zany take on Santa Claus. It says satirical fantasy comedy. It's witty, sharp, social commentary masked in holiday fun. It's smart, irreverent, for when you want something lighter but still clever. So it's not too long of a read. I feel like this is kind of going to be sort of cozy fantasy with some humor in it, but it is seasonal for Christmas. So I think this will be a fun one and maybe become a new like holiday favorite read. So we will see. But yeah, I was lucky enough to get this at like a used book sale. So I've just kind of been waiting for the right time to read it. All right, guys, that is my 10 before the end. And hopefully you got some recommendations, especially with some of the newer stuff coming out. If you haven't started those series, definitely get on it because I have absolutely loved them. But I am probably going to be doing my wrap up at the beginning of November, my wrap up for October. So this will kind of be like my final October video. But as we are kind of finishing out October and sort of like the spooky season, fall, I know November is still fall. I definitely think of it that way. I know some people are like instantly Christmas after Halloween, but I don't really do that. But as we're kind of like changing seasons, I thought it would be good to kind of talk about just how I'm going to be potentially finishing out the year. Again, I don't know if I will get to all of these books. I definitely hope so in the next couple of months, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that I will get to them. But definitely let me know your 10 before the end. Leave me a like orange or yellow heart in the comments to let me know that you got to the end of this video. I know I'm doing like the millennial heart. I know the new one is like something, I don't know. I don't know how to do it. I'll just do my millennial heart. Or the like K-pop heart or however you do that. I don't know. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. Again, let me know your 10 before the end, or let me know what you're reading right now, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.